Okay, so let's get started here and play with some papers. Okay, so today I have some Yamamoto new to me papers that I'm going to be going through. This is kind of prep for a future video where I will be using these pages that I'm going to write today in that video. So what I'm going to be doing here is doing my kind of standard testing pens and pencils that I use for the live stream. So let me switch to my overhead camera here. Okay, so we got this. So this is my kind of Lockbee tool roll that I inherited from my wife when she upgraded to a larger pen case. And this is what I keep all my testing pens and pencils in, minus really the Opus 88 Omar with the Teranishi Gentle Green. That's a pen that's in my normal rotation. So that one is normally out and about in my pen tray or in my Galen leather or something like that. But these are my testing pins, my TWSBIs and the extra fine, medium, broad, my Lamy 2000 stainless, my Asvine J16, my Oto rollerball, the smaller one. I use the larger one in my more normal writing. This one's just a smaller diameter, so it's kind of been relegated to the testing fleet. A CW wooden pencil, a Kuratoga, and then a good old-fashioned Sharpie. So let me go in and get started here, and I'll kind of show which papers I'm going to be testing. So I have the new 2 sheets of the new Canopus paper. Someone in my pen club was able to give me a couple sheets of that because I missed out on buying a tablet of it from Gentleman Stationer before he sold out. So when he gets more, I'll pick up an actual package of it. I got the Sheep Cloud Bond, which I have used before, but I'm doing these and I'll show here in a second what these are coming out of. I have 2 sheets of the Meringue and then 2 sheets of Soloist. So what these come out of, and you'll see this when I do the actual video. Make sure that's focused. Focus wants to fight me a little bit. So this is the bullet jotter system that Yamamoto released, and these are some of the Bible size inserts. So this one comes with the Sheep Cloud Bond and the Soloist, and then I added on a Meringue, and then eventually I'll add a Canopus as well once Joe gets some more in stock. So what I'm going to be doing is and I have a sheet here from one of my previous paper sampling videos, just showing how I'm going to write the same thing using this. And it's with those packs, they include one of these under card sheets, which will be great for this paper. So I'm just going to go through, and this is video prep. This is the part that normally I'm not showing on any kind of camera or anything like that. Just to kind of, I was doing it, I was like, well, I'm trying some new stuff with the streaming. I want to try and start streaming more. So why not stream this kind of prep work? And this will be my first true time using a couple of these papers. So, it's a little bit more, just a different type of reaction and use case. So, hopefully you'll find this interesting. I like it. And, also, if you're watching, let me know some feedback on the stream. I'm trying, some of the overlays and just trying to up the production. You should hear background music. If the music's too loud or anything like that, please pop it in the chat so I can adjust and learn for next time to try and make these better, since I do plan to start doing some regular Thursday night streams, schedule allowing. So that's the kind of plan going forward. But let's get into actually doing some of this writing here. So let me just go through the pens that I'll be using, and I'll pull them out of the sampler here, and then I'll get to the actual writing part. So for the extra fine nib, we have the TWSBI 580, and this has the Colorverse Pulsar Pulse in it, which is a sheener. For the fine nib, we have the Twisby Eco in a fine. And this has the Robert Oster Blue River for Vanessa. It's their special edition in it. For the medium nib, we have another Eco with the Iroshizuku Kosumosu in it. For broad, another Eco. And this is the Pelican Edelstein Onyx. And I bought these Twisbys, these three, just for having this with the same inks in this kind of testing setup to have consistency as I get a chance to explore new papers. I'm trying to treat this, you know, what did we learn in school? The scientific method, repeat the process. So that's what my goal in doing it in this way. Up next, we have the Lamy 2000 stainless. And in this, I have the Iroshizuku Shinkai. Got the Asvine J16, and this has a Yovo number 6 in it. And the ink in this is the Iroshizuku Cyan Gyo. Now, this ink was one of the newer ones released by Iroshizuku this last year. And on some papers, I've found it to bleed through or just have weird consistency versus other Iroshizuku inks. So I've kept that one as part of my testing fleet, just because I've seen that where other inks have been fine, and I have it in this pen, so why not? As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I've got an Oto CR02 rollerball. That's a Japanese ceramic rollerball tip. Got a good old-fashioned wooden pencil. This is the CW wooden pencil. Got a 0.5 millimeter Kuratoga, and this is by Uni. And that'll be used for the mechanical side. And I have this out of order. This is my Opus 88 Omar that has the Teranishi Guitar Gentle Green in it. And this is an ink that I'll talk about here in a second with the actual swatch that I do on the bottom. And then, of course, last but not least, a Sharpie. So now that I have those out, what I'm doing for the ink swatch on the bottom of these, let me see, I should be able to switch to this camera over here if everything's working. I use the Teranishi Guitar Gentle Green. And this is what I swatch because on some papers, and I don't know how the Canopus or the Meringue or some of these will work, this ink has been known to stay blue. When it goes down, it's blue, and then it dries into this kind of greenish color like you see here. But on certain papers, they do not allow the ink to actually do that color change. So that's why I really like using this gentle green ink for that purpose. So that being said, you know, this is kind of a behind the scenes while it's letting me do all this kind of prep before starting that video. So all I'm going to be doing is going through and on these different papers, doing a similar writing list like this, following the lines on the little guide sheet that was included with each of the paper sheets. And I think I'm going to start with the, I've used Sheep Cloud Bond before. I like that paper. But since I haven't used some of these others, I think I'm going to start with Canopus because that one is the one that seems to be getting the most kind of just talk around the paper and stationery community as a whole. So the Canopus, and then I'll do the Meringue after that. So let me get these kind of lined up in order. Because in going through doing all these, having done enough papers, I tried one time before to go through all the papers with when I had one pen out and go through them, and that just did not work very well. It's much easier to kind of go sheet by sheet. And then I also realized I did not grab some blotter paper, so let me grab a sheet of that. So in my Galen here, I keep some of the Coffee Monsters for when using for journaling. Let's grab one of those sheets out for now. Okay, so hi, Lydia's Designs. Thanks for joining in as I go through these papers here. Okay, so we're going to start with the Canopus. And if you have any questions as I'm going through this, feel free to ask in the chat. You know, it adds a little bit of... This is kind of the part of making videos that's the worst part of all the prep. So at least getting to interact with some people while doing the prep is a nice change of pace. So I'm going to start here, and I don't think the camera is going to show it because of how the light works. But I can see let me see if I can show on this side camera. Just if you're not familiar with these guide sheets that Yamamoto includes, yeah, that'll show it. You can see the lines through there well enough. And I'm actually, I think, going to use the grid side because I do write smaller just to keep the lines in order. So let's get the camera back to the right overhead camera here and get the blotter paper in place. And if you're not familiar, blotter paper is just to keep hand oils off the paper because that can really affect pens and inks as you're writing. So you'll see a lot of people use it. So if you've ever wondered if you're new to the hobby, that's what this is for. And it can also be used when you're done writing a page. This is an absorbent paper. You can just kind of put it on there and press, and that'll lift up any ink that might not have fully dried yet so that you could turn pages and not make a mess on your previous page. So let's get started here. It's always interesting on new papers to see, because I know how these inks perform now, you know, whether or not they're going to behave as I've seen on other papers. That's always interesting to kind of see, because I can already tell that there is sheen showing through on the first ink. And this Robert Oster ink is a really liquid ink. I mean, obviously they're all liquid, but it's a very wet writer. So that'll be interesting to see as well. And if you notice, I'm writing a little bit more I'm leaving a little bit of a left margin. Eventually I will punch these and they'll go in my paper testing A5 plotter. Now, ideally I would have another plotter for Bible size papers for paper testing, but I think 4 plotters is enough for the time being. So while I use a Bible size plotter for my normal calendar that I carry with me, some of this paper could end up in there for use, but not from a swatching standpoint. So get that one done. And this is always interesting to me too, since I normally, all my writing is almost in extra fine nibs. Actually using these larger size nibs when doing these, especially when I get to the broad nib, it makes me really struggle to make legible handwriting because I'm just not used to writing with that much ink going down at once. Okay, and here's the aforementioned broad nib and the Eco with the Pelican Edelstein Onyx. Okay, and for consistency, what did I do next? I had the Lamy 2000 next. Okay, and then let's see, next should be the Opus 88. And this is always nice because it's a little bit of a sneak preview of whether or not the swatch, when I get to that last part, is going to do the color change or not, because this is the same ink in here that I swatch with. So you can see it in the writing context and in the swatching context. Okay, there we go. And then next is the J16. And this has the Orochizuku Saiyan Gyo in it. Oh, and I just realized I do not have my multi-pin out, so let me grab the multi-pin I've been using in this. Okay, so I've also, that's not my multi-pin. Okay, so I've also been testing with the Uni 4-in-1. This is the Pure Malt edition with the Jetstream ink. And I've been doing the blue, or the black, blue, green, and red, just to have the ballpoint aspect of the writing. So far, this Canopus is, I guess it'll, once I get a chance to actually look at it when I don't have the blotting paper on it, it'll be interesting to see there. But I mean, it's a nice paper. It's nice to write on, but there hasn't been anything that's jumped out to me yet as crazy different than some of the other Yamamoto papers. Okay. So we'll move on to the rollerball. And that is a 0.5 millimeter rollerball. Okay, next we have the wooden pencil. And then the Kuratoga. And then, last but not least, good old-fashioned Sharpie. And I will wait and do all the ink swatching of the bottled ink at the end, so that way it's just a little bit less of a spill chance. But let's take a look at the back of this. So far, and we'll switch over to this desk camera here. So far, it's behaving very well. I mean, easily a dual-side paper use. the Sharpie even doesn't show through all that much or bleed through. And then, looking at it from the overhead, I know the focus. Let me see if I can get this here, and then good. The joy of manual focus cameras. Okay, so you can see there all the inks. You can see the sheen of the Pulsar Pulse. It actually is showing quite a bit of sheen, which is nice. You can see the sheen on the gentle green, so the ink will definitely, when I do the swatch, will do the change, it looks like. You can even see sheen on Shinkai, and that one's one of those that you don't always get the sheen to shine through. So far, this is pretty nice. So that's the Canopus. So let me get this focused back now to the desk. And we'll move on to the Meringue paper. So I'll just set this aside. Okay, so now we get to do all of that over again with another paper, going through all the pins. The unseen kind of boring part of YouTube videos. But this is enjoyable. Even, it's repetitive, but getting to see how all these different things react now that I've done enough videos to kind of see the response, I can remember and recall and, see the difference versus when I was doing the first ones. I'm sitting here thinking, man, this is a lot to go through. But now I've kind of got that mental reference to see how it's kind of stacking up from the start. Okay, extra fine. Okay, got the fine done. Onto the medium. On to the broad with the Pelican Edelstein Onyx. Okay, and then next we have the Lamy 2000 with the Roshizuku Shinkai. Then the Opus 88. Okay, and then we have the Asvine J16 that has the Aroshizuku Sayangyo in it. Okay, and then we got the multi-pin. Okay, so that's the multi-pin, and then we have the roller ball. Got the wooden pencil. Got the Kurotoga. Okay, and then the Sharpie. Okay, and like I mentioned earlier, I'll do the swatch at the end where I'm doing all the papers. So let me pop this over to the desk camera here. So this one from the front, everything is looking nice. You can see a little bit of the light on this side is not the best. You can see a little bit of sheen from the Pulsar Pulse, and it does not want to focus very well. You can see the gentle green. It looks like it is going to be able to convert. Now, as for the back, aside from the Sharpie, easily a dual side use paper, which is always good to see for something, especially for this with being Bible size. If it's going to go in a planner, that gives versatility to it. So that's something for that use case for me, I'm going to be looking for, I know. Okay, so that's the first two down. And then up next we have, let's see, we've got Soloist and Sheep Cloud Bond. And since I've done Sheep Cloud Bond before, after I'm done with the Soloist here, what I think I'm going to do is just some of my other fountain pens. I've got another sheet of Canopus. Just kind of go through and play with it and see how just pens that I have inked react to it, to kind of play with it, since this is my first time using the paper and I already have the sheet that I need done for the video. And while I am not the biggest TWSBI user, I have to say, these things, even though they've been in this roll, you would think I just filled them up yesterday. There was no drying out whatsoever. So that's definitely great to see in terms of if a TWSBI is your preferred daily writer. And that's the Kosamosu. Okay, and next we have the Lamy 2000. Okay, and then got the Opus 88 with the gentle green in it. The J16. Okay, that's the Cyango there. Then we have the multi-pin with the 4 different colors next. I have to say, I'm really impressed with both the Uni 4-in-1 and the Pilot with the Acro ink. Their red multi-pen ink just really pop on all these papers. I don't really have a need to write in red very often, but man, that ink always looks great. Okay, that's the roller ball, the O2. Okay, we've got the Kuratoga. And last but not least, the Sharpie. Okay, so looking at this one, you can see a little bit of the sheen on the, I got a pop-up window here. You can see sheen on the Pulsar Pulse. There we go, that's good. If it'll focus there. You can see it coming through a little bit on the Shinkai. The Opus 88 with the gentle green looks like that ink will be able to convert once I do the swatch. Looking at the back, this also is easily a dual side use paper, except for Sharpie, but that pretty much applies off pretty much any paper. I don't think I've had any papers I've tested yet where that was not true. And just to save doing it, let me go in and do the Sheep Cloud Bond as well here real quick. 1 second here. Okay, so make sure I got the right paper here. And just a tip, if you're going through multiple papers, when you take them out, I would just use a pencil and pop this back over so I know what is what after the fact, because some of them you can tell by feel. I just write what the paper is on the bottom just to have that reference, or if someone else is looking at your paper samples, they can just look at the bottom to know what paper they're looking at. I found that to be helpful, especially with like some of the paper tasting packs and whatnot. There's so many, or if I'm doing multiple of those in one video, that's really been helpful to keep track of what's what. Now, on this Sheep Cloud Bond, I can instantly see this is a thinner paper because the backer board is showing through much better on this one. Okay, that's the Blue River onto the medium nib, which we have the Oroshizuku Kosumosu in it. Thank you, Dong Ding. Welcome, and I'm just doing some prep for a future video on some Yamamoto papers. Okay, and this is the Pelikan Edelstein Onyx ink. Okay, and then we have the Lamy 2000 with the Shinkai. The Opus 88 Omar with the Teranishi guitar Gentle Green in it. Okay, and then we have the Asvine J16 that has the Cyangyo in it from Roshozuku. Okay, and then we have the Uni 4-in-1 where we're doing all four of the multi-pin inks. Okay, and then we got the Oto 0.5mm rollerball. Okay, and then the CW wooden pencil. The Kuratoga, which is a 0.5mm mechanical. Okay, and then fix this here real quick off camera. Okay, and then last but not least is the Sharpie. Okay. So let me switch over to the, well, before I switch, let me just get a good look in the light. Yeah, you can see the sheen on the Pulsar Pulse, the Shinkai, and the Gentle Green. So let me show this over here on the side camera. That Pulsar Pulse, this camera just does not want to focus at that distance very well. But when the light hits right, you can see the sheens coming through on those sheening inks. And then the back of the paper, aside from the Sharpie, definitely dual side use. which I have to assume that Yamamoto chose these particular papers in this Bible size format I showed this earlier, but in the jotter size format, which is kind of meant as a take notes in a meeting type thing. It has two different pads like this inside of it, one on the other side. It'll hold it in the back of the pad. So I would assume they meant for these to be, practical papers that are going to be very ink agnostic and work well for most people, so that way you're not having to worry about that, and you're just able to focus on the meeting or your writing that you're doing. Okay, so now that all that is done, we'll do the actual ink swatch. So let me get all these put to the side, free up the little bit of desk space here. Okay, so now that all of that is clear, we get to do the swatch across the 4 papers. And I think I can line these up in such a way that I can have the blotter paper under it, and I can do 2 and 2, and then that way I don't risk getting it through if it bleeds through on the desk mat. And once again, I am using the Teranishi Guitar Gentle Green as my swatch ink. That's kind of become my go-to. And then in terms of the method of swatching, picked up from Olive Octopus ink, using just a glass stirring rod, kind of like a cocktail stirring rod, and just dip in the ink. And get a nice even line across. And then normally do on most of these just a second dip. So I can get that kind of variation where you've got a little bit more, a little bit less in some areas as you go. And this is another reason why I use the blotting paper when doing the writing, is right where my hand would be for writing with all of those different pens is right where the ink swatch would go. So that helps remove that as a variable. But it looks like already on this one, and I know it's zoomed out, I'll show it once it dries a little bit more because it's sitting there. Looks like I might have had a fingerprint at that very beginning there because of how that is. You can see the ink is just very visually different. So just in handling the paper. So that's something to be aware of if you haven't experienced that with papers, is hand oils can really make a difference on some of these papers, especially the Japanese papers, I think, just due to their, I assume, the manufacturing process. Okay, so let's get the swatch on these last 2. Gonna connect the dots there a little. Get this ink bottle closed up. Then we'll take a look at these swatches as they dry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift this over and turn to the side camera. See if I can frame it before I switch over so it'll hopefully focus on these without making a mess. Okay. One. There's two. Okay, so you can see those two, as those are drying, they should do the color change. And since these other two I'd already done, you can see this one is already starting to do its green, but I definitely think I had a fingerprint at the beginning of where that swatch started. Just, you can see that little pattern. It's almost like it's got my fingerprint in the swatch. And then on this one here, which is the Soloist, it's doing its change where it's going from the blue into the greenish, as the ink is known to do, which would be the expected result based off the writing. Now on this Meringue here, and let me see if I can hold that over in front, you can see it's taking a longer time for that ink to dry, and it's not changing as much. It seems to be keeping a little bit more of a blue hue to it. Now, this is, of these papers, it's got a little bit of a cream color to it, which I don't know if the camera is showing that all that well. That might factor into how the ink is showing. But, you know, this is why it's important to test your inks and papers if you're going to be using them for a certain purpose, so that you can kind of see the expected result, especially if you're doing something like invitations or art and you want to know how things are going to perform. It's always good to test this kind of thing in advance. So we've got these four here. Now, as I said, I have another sheet of Canopus. So what I think I'm going to do is just grab it and grab some of my inked pens that are sitting here, just a variety of other pens that aren't kind of my standard testing pens. I'm just going to go through and see how it performs with, you know, non-standard testing, I guess we'd call it, since this is kind of following how I've done all the other paper sampling videos with the certain pens and pencils and order and whatnot. So let's just see what I happen to have inked next to me in the drawer and in the pen tray and see what we come up with. Okay, so just grabbing a few of these, we'll put here. Okay, that's probably enough for... Actually, I'm looking for my Gravitas because it has that really nice burgundy. There we go. Grab that one. Let's grab them all out. See what we end up using. Okay, so a variety of pens here. I think every single one of these is an extra fine nib, except for the highlighter, which that just came in the recent video that I put out from the Gentleman Stationer patron or mystery box that he offered to patrons first. And it's a dual shade highlighter, which I actually like so much that I went and bought a pack of them yesterday. Which I thought I had right here, but I must have moved them somewhere else when I was kind of getting ready for the video. So starting out, this is my Newton Prospector, and it has the Finesse Fresh as a Daisy, which is a shader. And this nib on this is actually a Matthew Chin ground Kadachi. Yeah, so that was the Newton Prospector there. Really cool matte black ebonite. Yeah, the Prospector is great, Lydia. It's one of my favorite pins, and I waited way too long to get it. I should have gotten it earlier on. You know, I've known Sean for 15 years now, 14, and I should have gotten it early on, and I waited, and now I kind of regret because I could have been using it for all that time. Oh, very cool. Who are you going to go to? Which Nibmeister is on your docket? And do you know what kind of grind you're going to get? Are you going to go for a blade grind or like an architect or cursive italic? It's my Diplomat Elox. And I've got Lamy Orange in there. And this Lamy Orange is one of my oldest inks. I actually won in a giveaway from Vanessa in like 2013. Now that makes sense, Lydia, if you've only gotten nibs, because right now my only ground nibs are from Matthew, so that's something I plan to do as well as I make it to more shows this next year and get some other Nibmeisters to do some nib work just to have the variety. Because I can always swap nibs around between pins, which is great. So here we have the Diplomat Arrow, and I think I have Waterman in this. Serenity Blue. And I see a couple more people are hopping on. This is the Canopus paper that was Yamamoto that people have been talking about lately. So this one is the Leonardo Memento Zero. And this one has the Coffee Monsters Co. Forgotten Iced Coffee in it. I got an Architect from Matthew, and that's because of how I write. Architects are great, but the Kodachi gives a lot more variation. I got a larger grind. It's kind of a medium to broad-esque Architect, so it would be good for titles and whatnot, but not for sitting down and doing multiple writing. So I might get him to size it down a little bit next time I see him, just to add that variety in. So this is the Leonardo Memento Zero Grande and the Dark Hawaii color. And in this one, I have the Lamy Crystal Topaz. And I was actually using this yesterday, doing a couple pages of writing, and this is just a great pen that fits my hand really well. Hi, Jonah. Thanks for joining in. Okay, so this is the Gravitas Century, and this one has another one of my older inks that I'm kind of glad I rediscovered, the Mont Blanc William Shakespeare Velvet Red. Oh, no, that's great. Are you in? Do you have fountain pens? Or are you just getting into it, or is it something that you're going to add into your, you're looking to purchase your first one? This is the Asvine C80, and this has KWZ honey in it. No, that's great. I mean, I'm actually going to be doing a video soon talking about an easy way to get into it, and I'm going to make myself use intro pins for a full week and actually have them, two of them here, and then this one got the Platinum Preppy, which these are like $6, and then the Kakuno, which I think is like 11, maybe 12, and I'm going to use cartridges, and I'm just going to only use these. I have all these other pins at my disposal, but I'm going to use the entry pins for a week. So I'm trying to kind of plan that video out, because I've been doing this since 2013, just into pins, and I'd never owned a Kakuno or a Preppy, and I didn't account for how quickly I would write through cartridges. So I'm going to have to stock up on some cartridges before I can make that video, because while I put this cartridge in this pin on Friday, let's see if I can go over here. I wrote through that since Friday, and today is Sunday. Thanks, Jonah. Yeah, I did reach the 1,000 a while back. Thanks to some support from the pin addict himself, Mr. Brad Dowdy. He encouraged his viewers on one of his Twitch streams to kind of send me over that threshold, which I was very appreciative of. So let me go and write with this Kakuno here. Just the plain, and if you're not familiar with the Kakuno, it's got the smiley face on the nib with the tongue sticking out on the extra fine. I don't know if it's the same on all of them, and this is just Pilot Black. I'll put cartridge. No, glad to answer. It's, that's part of the fun of this hobby, is talking to people and, going to pin meetups and things like that. This is my TriStar Studios. He's out of Columbia, Tennessee. You can see his, once again, this manual focus on this overhead camera. That's the Tennessee State logo, and he has that laser etched in the pin. Yeah, it went down a little bit when I plugged it in, and I don't know how to pronounce your username. I've seen it before. But some of it was from writing. It had an initial, maybe 1/8 of an inch or whatever that is in metric, go down when I put it in. It kind of filled in the feed, but in writing, I can see it going down some more as well. What ink do I have in this one? This one is Diamine Blue Black. And this is actually a Bach extra fine versus most of these others are Yovo. TriStar, they use Bach when they're making their pins. This one is a recent pin to me, the Pilot 912 with the PO nib. And if you're not familiar with the PO nib, it's the really, really severe turn down tip. Really, really fine. My least favorite pin. Probably a pin that I got as a gift. It's a eyedropper only ebonite pin from India that had a terrible nib on it, and it burps every time you use it. So I still own it because it was a gift, which was a very thoughtful gift, but I never write with it because I don't want to have ink spots all over the page when using it. And in this posting nib, I have Lamy Crystal Amazonite. So it's actually showing on this Canopus some really nice shading of that Amazonite, which you don't necessarily see on ultrafine nibs. So that's a nice surprise. Let's go with the little guy next. Favorite pin is much harder because all of these are, because it's a pin ink combo for me. All of these pins are probably my favorite when I'm using them. How you doing, Fuzzy Turnip? So favorite pin is hard to answer. I mean, there's some that are favorite from sentimental, like my first pin is probably going to be one of my favorites. It's my Sailor 1911 Black Luster, because that was like my first real gold nib pin. But I have I rotate through. I've been making a concerted effort to use all my pins, and so it's hard to say favorite, but probably most sentimental. The other one that is over here that I'll write with as well, it might have dried a little bit because I haven't used it in a little, is this one is the D Squared Arts. If you're new to following my channel, I've started a video interview series that I just wrapped season 1. I have 19 episodes and then kind of a wrap-up episode. Well, talking to Daryl, who I met at the Arkansas Pin Show. This is a hand-carved pin, and after I got it, I learned a little bit more history on it when he mailed it to me. If you let me write with this Kaweco, and then I'll put that over on the side camera so this doesn't dry out. This has, I got this from my Plotter Mini 5 wallet as a fountain pen option. I've lately been using the Antique ballpoint in it. I got a couple of pins as my options when I started with it. But this has cartridge only, and this is Diamine Purple Dream cartridges. And I just noticed whatever music I have playing on the random playlist of music. No, this is actually brass. This is a brass pin body. Some of these nibs are gold, but a gold body pin would be probably exists, but would probably be really rare. So let me open up this D Squared Arts pin here and go over to my side camera again. So if you see the carving, like notches in there, those are all done by hand. He gets the base pin kind of created on a CNC, and then all of that is done with files, rasp, and sandpaper. And he also poured the blank that the pin is made out of. It's called liquid ice. Jonah, if you ever want to go look at some pins that are kind of crazy, look up David Oscarson pins. I think the cheapest pin of his is $5 or $6 grand. And then, of course, Mont Blanc and some of the other luxury pins can go up from there. But you were asking about gold. This is actually in here a 14 karat SIG grind from Franklin Christoph that I got to go in this pin because it's just a nice pairing. It's, hearing the, to finish my story I was telling on this pin, when Daryl made this, he had just lost his father, and this is the pin he kind of used as the grieving process, and then he had it for sale. So I didn't know that backstory. So owning that kind of history in this pin, you were asking about favorite pins. This is one that will always be a favorite. Just the story behind it. An artist being able to use their pen making to process grief. That's, I will never get rid of this pen now. Hearing that story, I wouldn't want it to, kind of get lost. So this is a pen I use with a frequent basis, and this one has Ackerman Oost Indigo in it. And I love this nib, the SIG nib. Well, I do the interview, the video podcast, Jonah. So that's the part when I started this channel, I started just doing ink swatching, but I actually like that interview and the talking format. So that's actually some of my favorite videos to do now, is getting to just talk to pen makers or business owners and whatnot, and kind of learn more about their history and how they got started. So if you kind of like that format, or like things to listen to in the background, check out the playlist I have for the video feed. I think you'd enjoy that if you like hearing that kind of style. So this one is my souvenir from when I went to New York City this last Thanksgiving. We did kind of a pin store. I went to 5 or 6 different pin stores in New York City. My wife and I went for Thanksgiving, and I filled this then, and you can see it's not written down yet, but I still use this with a regular basis. This has Sailor Tea Time in it, but this is a custom 92 with a gold nib. and this is a great kind of off orange color, which I've been trying to get more color selection in my writing. And that leads into this next pen really well. This is a pen with the blank is poured by someone local to me, pens by Pasquale, Nick Pasquale. And then this was commissioned by Eric of Amarillo Stationery. Ugliest is, that's a very subjective thing. There are pens that I personally would not want to own, but that might be the perfect pen for someone else, especially when you get into like random material mixes like these custom blanks. It's hard to say because one person's ugly pen might be the perfect pen for someone else. So I wouldn't really say there's an ugly pen. It just might not be my preference. There are some pens that are not finished well, so you can see marks on them, and that's probably the closest thing I would consider ugly, like a pen that just needs a little bit more finish work on it. It just doesn't have the, it's not smooth, and it doesn't have a visual appeal, but I wouldn't say it's ugly. It's just unfinished. But this is from Amarillo Stationery, and let me switch over. This one even has the logo nib on it of Mr. Amarillo, which is the mascot. And I can show that. I actually have one of my pen sleeves right here. That's Mr. Amarillo, and the colors of this pen match the mascot. So it's a neat little side thing. But the ink in this pen is one of the Amarillo Stationery inks, and it's probably one of my favorite colors currently that I have in a pen. I've been using it, all the time since I got it. This is the Meringue Kicks. And I mean, that pen or the ink matches the colors in the blank so well. You can see if I can get these to just behave. You can see how well that matches that ink, even though it's not focusing perfectly, the colors are still showing through correctly. And I like that this blank has a good representation of the colors. And then this, last but not least, this is a Mark II 2-color highlighter and by Kikuyo. And this came in the Gentleman Stationer mystery box that I did recently. And switch back over to the proper camera. Okay. I freeze there. Okay, I think one of my cameras froze. So give me a second. Let me try. See if I can get this fixed real quick, because the overhead camera is kind of important for this. So while I'm messing with that, I'll just switch to my face camera here while I can try and get this sorted to the side. And try and figure out what's happening here. Okay, properties. Okay, so that seems to just have frozen. So, let me try one other thing here, and if that doesn't work, then might just have to write and then hold it to the other camera. After I've written. Okay, so that's not going to work. So let me switch just to the desk camera, and because you can kind of see the writing happening here. So this is a dual tip highlighter. You can see it's got the two different sides. So when you use one, it has a really light color, and then you can switch to the other, and it's got a darker color. So if you're annotating or writing in a journal or a book of some sort and you want dual color, you can have the lighter, because now that you have those, you could take something like this is my Arto design or Arto TI EDC, and you can fit over 750 different types of refills in this. It telescopes, but now once you have that highlighted, you can write over it. Schmidt. So then you have it show up like highlighting after the fact. So you've got that kind of use case there. And I have a pack of these that I just bought yesterday that I haven't even opened yet that has other colors. So I look forward to using those. I liked the one that I got in the mystery box so much that I bought a pack of them. So I look forward to that. But, thanks for spending some time and following along here as I've gone through these, papers and just these writing samples and kind of playing around. All the writing I did on the papers earlier are going to be included in a video once I get a chance to film that this next week or so, and then I'll get that released. And then I also have, if you're a plotter user, I just filmed earlier today that I have to work on editing to get released, some changes to my Mini 5 plotter that I use as a wallet, as well as my Bible size plotter, and just how I'm using what I'm doing for storage of the pages when I take them out and things like that. So yes, Jonah, I've been on for a little over an hour here, and I have some other stuff I have to get taken care of before the week coming up. So I appreciate you tuning in and watching along. So if you like this kind of thing, I'm going to start doing regular live streams on Thursday evenings. And yeah, what Fuzzy Turnip saying, the Antique ballpoint pens are wonderful. I've got this is one of them here, and it's just a great writer, and they're only a couple of bucks from the Gentleman Stationer. Is one of the easiest places to find them. And if you do go to his website, you can use the actual code the same as my username, DWRDNet. You can save 10% on your purchase. So I would highly recommend, if you're looking for an inexpensive pen that writes wonderfully, the Antique ballpoint pens, either in the standard size or the mini, are hard to beat. So thanks, Fuzzy Turnip. Thanks, Lydia. Thanks, Jonah. Anybody else who is on and hadn't had a chance to participate in the chat, I appreciate you following along. And until next time, I'll see you again on Thursday or in another video. And thanks for watching.